How we doing, everybody, and welcome in to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. It is Thursday, June 27th, a fantastic Thursday, June 27th. It's been a couple days. It has been a couple days here. Had the live show going on Monday there, or on Tuesday there, and just haven't been able to get back on. Life, been all around baseball, everything like that going on, some late nights, so I haven't been able to get on. But hey, we're back. We're back. Regular times now, regular times every day like we normally do there. Lots of good stuff happening. Lots of good stuff happening in the world of sports since we last talked. So we're going to get to it all today. We want to get to the Bucks today. NBA draft going on last night. We saw the Bucks first round pick. Talk about him a little bit there. Look at the Brewers. We've had some interesting stuff happen at the Brewers, not just at the big league level, injury report-wise, everything like that. So get into that a little bit today here. And just to start it out, if you did not see, Mark Murphy, they did announce Mark Murphy was going to be replaced by Ed Policy there as the president and CEO in 2025. So now we know, we were waiting for that announcement, who is going to be the next president CEO of the Green Bay Packers once Mark Murphy's time is up in 2025, pretty much right after the draft, basically there. And we do see now it will be Ed Policy taking over there for him. So good stuff there coming out of Green Bay. They have that all figured out. Hopefully now we focus on Jordan Love. We focus on getting him signed up to a big commie. At this point, with what Trevor Lawrence is signed to and what we're seeing some of these other quarterbacks around football get signed to here, it's really putting Jordan Love up there with being near the top of highest paid quarterbacks going into next year. It's hard not to picture him in that area there. So that's about all I got for Packers. Just a little bit of just telling that it didn't get announced. I never got to it there. And if you didn't know there. So moving on there, and in sort of past Packer news, Randall Cobb had a little bit of an incident over yesterday there. And it was when him and his family, they actually parked the Tesla in the garage there. And apparently the electric vehicle outlet, right? The outlet in their garage started on fire. And the Tesla started on fire and the whole garage was in flames. And apparently it was just a mess. It was just a mess. They said in the post that was posted by his wife, it was basically said like they were lucky to be alive, lucky to get out of there. And seeing some of the damage that did happen inside that garage, it was crazy. It was crazy there. And, a lot of people, it depends on what side you're looking at. One person will tell you that, it had nothing to do with, it had nothing to do with faulty wiring. It was electric vehicles. They're a problem. That's what's doing it. And other people would say that it was the electrician's fault. Well, I'm an electrician. I'm going to tell you that there is a possibility that something did happen with the wiring. It could have been a loose connection, right? Inside the outlet there, something bad could have happened, right? Sparks happen inside of that plug-in or where the plug goes in, could have easily caused it, right? Loose connections, anything like that. So, getting a little off topic there, talking about what could have actually happened there. Just a dangerous situation, and I'm glad and happy that it looks like from what we saw, Randall's okay, his family's okay, everything was good there. Just some damage that they'll have to take care of. But, it's awesome. It's awesome that they are all okay and we can move on from the situation, but scary situation there for Randall Cobb. But getting into the NBA draft, we saw the NBA draft going on last night, their first round of the NBA draft. A lot of interesting picks, and this was a draft that leading up to it, we knew it was going to stink. We knew there weren't a lot of... This wasn't like your draft where you go in and you got Zion Williamson in there and you got RJ Barrett. You got... I can't remember who the other guy... Cam Reddish was in that, same kind of group there from Duke. And, you got some of these higher-end players, and you also got the guys coming from overseas, and you also have, your G League guys and what you have. This wasn't one of those kinds of drafts. We looked at this draft, and you look at the number 1 and 2 picks, both came from France. The number 3 pick was Reed Shepherd there from Kentucky, and then we saw Stephon Castle from UConn. And then outside of that, we're talking about G League, France. we saw a lot of across the pond, overseers getting drafted in this one. I mean, the 12th pick was from Serbia there. So definitely one of those drafts where there wasn't a lot of college talent. I mean, there was talent. I'm not going to say there wasn't talent heading into this draft because there's some diamond in the rough guys. You're always going to have those diamond in the rough guys. And I feel like with this draft, I think that the way people were looking at it, I would almost say it was in the wrong perspective. Because, when I looked at this draft, I said, yeah, maybe the talent isn't as good right now. But there's this talent is something that I believe could be progressed over time, and that's something that I think is a takeaway from this draft is I don't know if any of these guys are going to be year one stars, right? I don't know if they're going to have phenomenal first years in the league, but I could see guys from Khalil Ware, you have Dalton Knecht mixed in there, Jacoby Walter from Baylor there. I mean, there's guys throughout this draft, Reed Shepard from Kentucky, Stephon Castle from UConn going to the Spurs, and Rob Dillingham. He was traded there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he ended up with the Spurs. That was the Memphis Grizzlies pick there. He ended up with the Spurs. But I feel like with some of these players, like it's not going to be a next year thing where these guys really step in and they're going to be these all around, phenomenal, a next star in line. But I feel like with these guys, they have a lot of room to grow, right? And I think that's the big thing I took away from that draft was that there's a lot of talent there. There's a decent amount of talent there. It's just development of that talent yet. It's not fully there quite yet. So with that, I mean, we watched the draft happen there. 76ers, they got Jared McCain there, and we moved on through the draft. And then we got to that 23rd pick, and that was the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'll be honest with you, I was not heading in this direction. I thought, to me, the Bucks had a couple of areas that I wanted to see them improve. I wanted to see them improve with a guard that could defend, was a very good defender. I wanted a defensive first guard, right? That's what I really wanted to see to pair up with Dame. So when I thought about that, I was thinking like Ryan Dunn from Virginia. I was thinking some of those kinds of guys there. Shireman from Creighton was a guy who gets after, opponents there. Looking at a couple of the other names on the list that I had, even a guy like Kyle Flipikowski. I'm not a big fan of Duke. Never have been. You guys know that. But, I mean, a 6'11", 230-pound power forward there out of Duke, a guy who can score it. He's got the ability. I believe he's got the ability to develop that outside shot. It's just going to be, finding that consistency. And, that might come over time there. But I saw maybe a guy like Kyle Flip or Tyler Kolek, Terrence Shannon Jr. I mean, you had those kinds of pieces there. And they surprised me. There's always got to be that surprise, right? And the Bucks, I'm not going to say right now, I don't want to, because there's going to be a lot of people who are flipping out. There's going to be a lot of people who are saying that this guy's going to be a bust and this and that. And you might be right. You might just very well be right. I mean, you look at what you had in Beach Camp, Marjan Beach Camp. We don't even know. We don't even know what we have in Beach Camp yet, right? We're waiting. We don't see him play. We don't see really much development. We just see him ride the pine. So if this ends up like another case like that, then we're starting to slack here on the on our picks line when we're picking. So then questions need to be answered there. But they go out and they grab A.J. Johnson. Now, A.J. Johnson, he did not play at a college last year. I believe, if I'm not mistaken there, he is I was just checking out his stats there just before. And he played overseas, I believe, Australia, NBL. That is where he is formerly from there. And, I mean, you're talking about a guy, 6'4", 167 pounds, 19th in his position ranking there at shooting guard. You look at his strengths, you look at his weaknesses. I mean, he is a guy, he's a playmaker. He can create shots off the dribble. He is he's a good shooter, right? He's a good shooter. But when I look at his weaknesses, and this is the thing that really gets to me, he's 167 pounds, right? This guy lacks strength. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot build strength, because Giannis is a guy who, when he came in, was a smaller guy, right? He's a smaller average Joe. And over time, he became built. We saw Giannis progress like crazy when he came to Milwaukee and started working inside the system. So I'm not going to say that, this AJ Johnson couldn't end up developing just like that and becoming a little bit, filled out and everything like that. But I look at it now and I'm saying, okay, this guy isn't going to be a guy who's going to contribute to the Bucks next year. I don't see it. I really don't. Unless if he bulks up during the offseason, because when I look at this Bucks team, the thing that really kicked me last year was the lack of defense there on the wing position and from the guard position, right? Beasley, not a great defender. Dame, not a great defender. Middleton was never really in there, so I can't really yell at Middleton any, but you didn't have great defense coming out of the wing and guard positions there. So my biggest thing was going into this draft, Ryan Dunn is not a phenomenal scorer, but he gets after guys. Virginia. I mean, you talk about defense, you should be looking at every guy coming out of Virginia and say, this guy is going to get after it on the defensive end, right? Tyler Kolek was a good defender. Terrence Shannon Jr. As much as Buck fans are Badger fans, right? We don't like Terrence Shannon Jr. from Illinois there. I mean, this was a guy who got after guards. So I saw those guys first, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I would be looking in that direction. They're a little bit more built. They seem like they're a little bit more ready. I don't know if AJ Johnson's ready. So this is one of those developmental pieces now. So we're building for the future, which is great, right? But the Bucks are kind of in a win-now state, right? If you're going to keep Brook Lopez, and I'm going to get into this next, but I mean, they're talking about trading Bobby Portis, but you got Bobby, you got Giannis, you got Dame, you got Middleton. How long is that going to last, right? How long are you going to keep that core together? So you're almost heading into next season. If you're going to keep all them guys around, it almost seems like a win-now situation. So where do you get the win now pieces? Are you going to rely on AJ Johnson to fill out, become a little bit more aggressive on the defensive end and become the guy that you really need him to be? Because, I mean, you look at this Bucks team, yeah, offensively, could they have used shooters? Sure. They could have used consistent shooters. But end of the day, I really thought defense was something that they struggled with. And I was really looking in this draft and saying maybe they can find somebody. Maybe they can find somebody with a little bit of a defensive first. Andre Jackson Jr. I mean, he can score it, right? But he is a defensive-minded dude. That's what you need. So maybe we see a little bit more of him in a role. But this pick seemed like it was a pick for a couple years from now. Maybe a little bit of playing time next year, but not an instrumental role in the rotation, but a pick for the future. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, you look at his weaknesses, not a lot of strength, not great defense, and consistency. Consistency, watching some of his highlights, hearing about him, and the number one thing I kept hearing was consistency. This guy's ability to shoot the basketball, this guy's ability to finish, this guy's ability to put the ball on the floor, right? And do it with consistent measure. Those are all things that he has to develop, and he has to develop fast if he's going to be a contributor to the Bucks next season there. So that's why I just really believe this was a pick where when the Bucks made it, it just seemed like it was a future, like, couple years down the road, maybe this will work out for this guy kind of thing. That's really where I was leaning with this pick here. So Bucks get AJ Johnson with that first round pick. They're going to pick next. I believe, I was just going to check that out there. Let's see here. Going to the rounds. Round 2, the Bucks have the 33rd pick in the draft. So they're going to pick the 33rd, so they're going to have the third pick in that second round. Maybe they find one of these other pieces still available. I mean, maybe Flip's still available to them. Maybe, I'm looking at the center position, and I'm trying to find pieces in there that would work out for this Bucks team. And, I mean, you got guys like P.J. Hall out of Clemson, but he's a 6'8", not a really big guy that you can work with there. A lot of guys from overseas. Kashid Johnson from Arizona would be an interesting guy there. He's not very big for the power forward position, but, I mean, He can get out. He can shoot. He's athletic. He can get after guys on the defensive end. He's only I believe he's only 6'6" there, so he's not a big guy. He's more of a let's get out and run kind of guy. So not a lot of options there, center or power forward position for the Bucks. If Kyle Filipowski gets picked off the board here, yet in the first round or in that second round, there not a lot of picks or options left for the Bucks there to look at that position. Maybe they look at another wing. Maybe a more of a defensively oriented wing there for the Bucks. So with that, before we move on, we got to get to the Brewers. Lots of Brewer talk happening. Lots of Brewer talk to happen yet today here. But before we get there, I want to mention some sponsors of the show here quick. First Game Day Supply on Alaska. Do you have a sports club or team? Are you looking for some sweet custom uniforms or apparel? Check out the awesome crew at Game Day Supply in Alaska to help your team get the sweetest gear. Find them on Facebook at Game Day Supply or online at GameDaySupply.net. Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood, Wisconsin. If you've been injured recently, whether you were mowing the lawn, you were walking to the car, whatever it was, and you felt something pop, felt like it might have tore, I don't know, you felt something. And you're like, maybe I need to get checked out. Maybe my doctor told me to go get some physical therapy. Stop in there and see Chad at Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood, Wisconsin. He'll get you right. He'll get you back to work, back out on your feet, back out mowing the lawn, whatever it is. He'll get you back there. Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood, Wisconsin. Sports Scene, sports cards, and memorabilia located in the Marshfield Mall in Marshfield, Wisconsin. You got to get down there. You got to get down there. Tons of sports cards, memorabilia, jerseys, model stock cars, whatever you need, your sports hobbyist, enthusiast needs. Al's got it down there at the store. Sports Scene in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Marshfield Motor Speedway is located just 3 miles outside of Marshfield on County Road H. You got to get down there this summer. Tons of family fun for all ages. Great food, great drinks, great atmosphere. Nothing better than a great summer day or night down at the track. So Marshfield Motor Speedway's there in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Pittsfield Farm and Home Center. At the store, they serve you anything from hydraulic hoses to red roses. Stop in and see the awesome crew at Pittsfield Farm and Home Center in Pittsfield, Wisconsin. And also your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty. Call Peggy Sue or Anna to find your dream home or if you're looking to sell. Find them on Facebook at your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty, or stop in and see them at their location in Marshfield there. But with that, we got to get to some Bucks talk. We got to get into the Bucks and talk a little bit about what has been going on, or with some Brewers. Sorry, said Bucks. I've been focusing on the Bucks there. We got to get some Brewer talk. Today. Lots of good stuff happening in and around the Brewers organization. So to start it off there, we saw, and I'm going to take this thing all the way back and talk about this guy a little bit here. So we saw the Brewers sign Dallas Keuchel, right? And Dallas Keuchel, maybe I would have to look back, but it's been a hot minute since Dallas Keuchel was running the baseball world. So I'm just gonna go check out his stats here, see what he looked like in this past couple seasons. He hasn't really pitched the best in the MLB in a while, so just want to look over his stats, kind of get into it a little bit here, and see what we thought of that the trade that the Brewers made here with the Mariners for him. I know I'm a little bit late. On it, but I still want to get into it here. So we saw Dallas Keuchel his last big moments, I guess you could say. Houston is when we saw Dallas Keuchel really come into his own early on. He had those years with the 20-8 record in 2015. We saw in 2017 he went 14-5 with that 2.90 ERA there. Those were his last real dominant, great years that we saw out of Dallas Keuchel. Ever since then, it's kind of been bouncing around. First with the White Sox there. Pitched well with the White Sox in 2020. I know 2020 was a COVID year. It's a little bit harder to gauge, but you're talking 6-2 in 11 starts there. He had a 1.99 ERA. Get into 2021 with the White Sox. This is where it starts to go downhill. 9-9, 5.28 ERA there with the White Sox. And then he jumps and he gets about 3 teams. He works for about 3 teams there in 2022. The White Sox, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Texas Rangers. All those stops, not great. 2023 goes to the Twins and ends up with a 5.97 ERA in It looks like 6 starts for him there and a 2-1 record. And now 2024, we're seeing him with the Brewers there. The Brewers get him for cash from the Mariners there. I mean, you look at his AAA stats from this season. Pitching with the AAA affiliate there for the Mariners, he had a 3.93 ERA, 13 starts, 7-4 record. Looking at his stats across the board there, he gave up 64 hits. He gave up 10 home runs, 31 earned runs compared to 36 runs total, 22 walks, and 45 strikeouts there. His last outings before the Brewers actually got him were, I mean, I'm not going to say that this guy was phenomenal, but were solid. I mean, they were solid stats there that he had. Over his last 3, or in his June stats, Keuchel in June, he had 23 innings pitched and a 1.57 ERA there. I mean, you take that, and you say, okay, he's been better as of late. And you look at that game against, when he pitched just yesterday there against the Rangers. Now, the stat line wasn't phenomenal. He ended up giving up a few runs, right? A few runs here and there for the Brewers. He started out well. I mean, 3 innings were well for him there. And then it kind of went downhill. He pitched 4 innings, 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 2 home runs given up. But this was a guy who the Brewers just basically grabbed, put him on a plane. He landed in Milwaukee, and then they just threw him out there for a start. Like, there was no rest. There was no, like, getting used to the team. There was nothing in between. There was no working with the catchers. There was nothing. Just throw him out there on the field. So, I mean, for people to already be coming out and saying, well, you know, this was a terrible signing. You know, it's a terrible experiment already. Why'd we even do this? Da-da-da-ba. I mean, you just got people just going absolutely ballistic like they do, right? Overreacting right away. I overreact, trust me. You guys have heard it here on the show. Jordan Love, everything in between. I've overreacted before. But I'll overreact when the sample size is bigger. Right? We saw Dallas Keuchel in basically a surprise start. And for the first 3 innings, it was pretty good. Right? I mean, not overly dominant, right? He's not like he's out there locking down the world and pitching like prime DeGrom or Cy Young Corbin Burns, right? And that's not what the Brewers expected out of this guy. Right? If you honestly, and this is to all the people that hated on this move and everything like that, if you honestly think the Brewers got Dallas Keuchel because they were praying that he could return to be a Cy Young candidate and be a dominant pitcher who was going to shut things down and be a number 1 in rotation, you need to take a little self-check, right? The Brewers did not get Dallas Keuchel for cash considerations. We did not get him from the Mariners for cash considerations just for that fact, because if he had the potential to come back and be that ace of the staff and be this and be that, then guess what? The Mariners would have asked for a little bit more than cash for Dallas Keuchel. Now, I'm not saying that the Brewers can't fix them. I mean, they've had, over the years, you talk about their success with kind of grabbing guys who are older and a little bit past their primes and make them into decent pitchers. 2018, Gio Gonzalez, 25 and a third innings there, 2.13 ERA. You look at Ulysses Chacin. In 2018, he had a 192 and 2/3 innings pitched, 3.50 ERA. Gio Gonzalez in 2019, 87 and a third inning, 3.50 ERA. Brett Anderson in 2021, 96 innings, a 4.22. I'm not saying that this guy the Brewers can't fix somebody, because they can. They found ways. Tobias Myers has turned his pitching around. Like, when we watched this guy come up for the first couple starts, I was really wondering what they saw in this guy. He left a lot of fastballs, and they told me when he came up, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's a fastball first kind of guy. He's a fastball first kind of guy." And I sat there like, if he's a fastball first kind of guy throwing 93, this ain't gonna be pretty, right? Because I mean, even if you're playing with edges, guys are gonna figure that out, right? And all of a sudden, I don't know, it was the flip to the bullpen and the back to the starting rotation, whatever it was. Tobias Myers found it, right? He found it. And you can't just say that was Myers just getting out there and throwing the ball around and it all of a sudden just clicked, right? You have to credit what Chris Hook has done, what Pat Murphy does inside that clubhouse, what William Contreras does as a catcher. I mean, look at Bryce Wilson talking about the other day of what it feels like to have William Contreras behind the plate. And he said, I believe I've only shook him off one time all year, right? That's how good William Contreras is at calling a game. Now, you still got to execute, right? But when you got a team like the Brewers do defensively, right? You have Bryce Terang at second base. Joey Ortiz did go out with injury, but, just a little bit of neck problems there, but hope to see Joey Ortiz back. But when you got Joey Ortiz playing third, you have Willy Adames at short, you have Yelich you could have Sal and Churro and Perkins, whoever's in the outfield, right? And you got Contreras behind the plate. You have a defense behind you, right? Not a lot of guys are going to be able to just bloop and put balls in gaps against that defense unless if it's a missile, right? It has to be perfect. It has to be perfectly placed in the gap to get by those outfielders how good they've been playing, how good defensively those guys play. And on the ground through the middle or through that left side, it has got to be scorching because otherwise you got Willie and Ortiz over there who can make plays. That is the thing with Dallas Keuchel is I don't need him to go up there and strike everybody out. I don't. So if the strikeout numbers aren't big, whatever. If this guy gets thrown into starts, and I don't know if he's going to be an everyday starter, right? I don't know if he's going to be every fifth day, right? I don't know if he's going to be that guy. But to me, if Dallas Keuchel can be a long relief guy, a guy who can come in the middle innings and kind of push Jared Canning to the wayside there. And that goes back to, I had a comment there. I had a comment about that I posted it as the Brewers announced that they were getting Dallas Keuchel. I posted it out there on the Facebook page because I wanted to, see some people's comments on that. And that was the comment that I got from a Jeff Soldner. Jeff Soldner there, great comment he had there. He was talking about him being an opener. Right? And that really opened my eyes on that. That's where my perspective of that was coming, was him being an opener. Jared Canning has pitched very well for the Brewers. Very well. I mean, the ERA shows it. His strikeouts, his innings pitched, everything like that. This guy is a great reliever that the Brewers found. I mean, a diamond in the rough, dude. All right, the Brewers, and this is another prime example of the Brewers fixing a guy. I mean, you can look around the Brewers bullpen and everything like that and say they fixed a lot of guys because you look at Brian Hudson, and I'm not going to say that all of a sudden the switch didn't flip in Brian Hudson's head, but that guy is pitching on a different level, and if he's not on the All-Star team, I think I'm going to boycott the game completely and probably send a letter to the MLB. They won't read it, but I'm going to send a letter. But, I mean, I'd be okay with Dallas Keuchel just being an opener 4 games. I need this guy to be just a average starter, right? At this point, the Brewers have been so injury-riddled in that starting rotation. I mean, you can date it back to last season already with Brandon Woodruff, right? We see Woodruff go down. That's last season already. This season, Junis. Taylor Clark's out. Joe Ross is out. Robert Gasser is out for at least the rest of this year, maybe next year too, right? Probably most of next year. I mean, you look across the Brewers pitching, and we see Abner Uribe's out, and we see Devin Williams go down. And, I mean, you're talking about 6 guys, right? Just in the pitching department that the Brewers are without. That can really kick a team, right? Not just in the bullpen. So I mentioned a couple bullpen guys there, but starters too. This is a depth. This is a depth piece. This is a guy who, I mean, we could keep playing this game, and I know some people would love to do it, but we could keep playing this game where we just keep digging and digging into the minors, and we just keep hoping and hoping, right? That's what we did. We brought Gasser up. Gasser did well. I mean, Gasser, that's the one that I hated to see go down because he was pitching so well. But you look at, like, Rodriguez. And was Rodriguez fully ready to come up? I don't think so. I'll be honest with you. I thought he needed a little bit more time in the minors. I did. He's a great prospect. He's got good stuff when it's working for him, right? But I felt like he needed a little bit more time. He started out this year struggling, got a little bit better as the season was going on. I wanted to see a little bit more of that progression as he went. Brewers thought he was ready, brought him up. He's had some good spots in games, and he's also had some missing, like I said, a lot of guys missing with pitches there, but struggling to find his location at times. Would you rather have the Brewers keep trying to play that game? Or would you rather have them jump on a trade? Jump on something that the Brewers did where they didn't give up any prospects. None of the farm. You didn't have to trade the farm, right? And that's a big thing because depth is important. You know, we talk about all these situations where, well, if this guy's back, where do we put this guy? If this guy's hitting, where do we put this guy? You know, we talk about all these situations, but it's also good to have that depth, right? Because if a guy does go down, you know, it was great that Eric Hayes ended up staying in the Brewers organization because Gary Sanchez on the 10-day IL, we see Eric Hayes come up from AAA. Now, will he play? I don't know. Is he going to play a lot? I don't know about that one. But, I mean, just having that depth of a experienced piece down there in the minors that we can always fill in there. So this is a guy, Dallas Keuchel, on a minor league contract, trying to prove himself back in the league there. This is a guy that the Brewers have on a low risk, high reward kind of deal, right? If he pitches well, the Brewers got rewarded. If he struggles, well, you could send him down AAA, right? You could send him down AAA. He can work down there for a while. I think that I honestly don't mind this move by the Brewers. I don't. You know, people out there hate the move. They make jokes about it and everything like that. I don't hate the move. This is a move that, I'll be honest with you, I expected out of the Brewers. I expect out of them something of this nature to see if it will work, right? That's the way that the Brewers love to operate, to see if it will work. They're not going to make that deal where we're going to go to some big name team, right? Or some, you know, team with a big name starter on it and try to pluck them away, right? I'd be fine if the Brewers called up the Detroit Tigers and said, hey, what do you guys want for Jack Flaherty? Is Flaherty back to his ace stuff, his top of the rotation stuff? I think he's got the stuff. I think his location struggles at times. I think his breaking ball struggles at times. But I think Flaherty's got the stuff to still be a good pitcher. I'd be okay if the Brewers called over and plucked a guy like Jack Flaherty. You know, because I believe that Fetty and Crochet, a little bit longer of deals, they're going to command a lot more back from the Brewers. Now, if you're in a win-now mode, if you really think that this could be it, if you're not trusting maybe your decision with a Jack Flaherty or a Dallas Keuchel, I mean, you could put guys in this rotation who, I mean, this is the way the Brewers love it, and it always irritates me, but could and would potentially be good, right? Potentially be good arms to add. Long story short, I mean, I truthfully am not opposed to the Dallas Keuchel deal. You know, I thought he pitched pretty well in his first outing, barring that he showed up basically as the game was starting. Didn't have any time to settle or anything like that and was thrown out there. If he goes, and this this is where I'm going to gauge it, 3 to 4 starts. 3 to 4 starts. In 3 to 4 starts, you will have your complete evaluation of if Dallas Keuchel is going to be an out-getter for you, if he can go multiple. Maybe he's a guy who can only go 2 innings or 3 innings, right? That puts him into that opener role, which is fine. If he can only be an opener for you, that's fine. Put him in the bullpen then. Put him at the front end of that bullpen. Have Jared Canning move back farther into that bullpen, maybe into the 6th or 7th inning role, right? A setup guy, because Canning has pitched some big innings. I mean, you look at the Rangers game there, that finale, and he pitched late in that one. He pitched that 10th inning for the Brewers and locked it down, shut the door on the Rangers. That's something that the Brewers have struggled to do. I mean, we've seen struggles from Milner, Payamps, Paguero. We've seen struggles from all them guys. Jared Canning did a phenomenal job stepping into that role. So I'd love to see Jared Canning be able to move back in the back, you know, not the back end of the bullpen, but near the back end, right? Maybe a 7th inning guy, a setup guy, or a hold kind of guy there. I would be fine with that. Hudson's my setup man. McGill's my closer for now until Devin Williams returns, which was great news. He threw a bullpen session. I mean, you get to a point where you have, Devin Williams as your closer. You have, let's just say, McGill or Hudson. I would say Hudson as my setup man. And then you have McGill before that. That reminds me of, like a three-headed monster like we saw in 2018 with Jeffress, Knebel, and Hader. And I'm not going to say the same because those guys had different. I mean, you're talking about Hader and Knebel. That was an overpowering fastball, right? Hader was it was kind of like a deceitful fastball from Hader that really blew people away. And then Knebel was a overpowering fastball, good breaking stuff. Kind of reminds you of a Trevor McGill kind of character there. Jeremy Jeffress, good breaking stuff. Guy could dot corners when he was on. He was a very good reliever when he was on for the Brewers. So you see him in that role. I mean, you're talking about having a three-headed monster at the back end of that bullpen once again. And then you look even before that, if Payamps gets on track, like we saw last year, if Paguero can find his stuff again, and then you have Jared Koenig still in there. The people look at the Brewers bullpen and it seems like they forget a lot of times that we don't have Dev Williams yet, but he is on his way, right? The cavalry's on its way back. The Brewers are just surviving until the cavalry's back. When this rotation, barring, now we saw Joe Ross was put on the 60-day IL, but, you look at pitching, I'm not looking at the bullpen and saying I need to add in the bullpen. You can add pieces. I'm not saying that it's ever a bad idea to add pieces out there in the bullpen. But the bullpen, barring injury, barring anything goes bad, I'm not worried about the bullpen. I worry about starting rotation, but I don't worry about the bullpen there. And I don't worry about the bats, right? I feel like the Brewers have the bats. We look at Jackson Chourio right now. We saw him, another inside the park home run out of him there. This guy has got wheels on top of wheels. His last 15 games, he's batting over 280 there. He has been great. He has been great for the Brewers. Sal Frelick has been getting hot, right? Yelich has been doing his thing. Contreras has been struggling a little bit, but I don't expect Contreras to stay in that boat for long. And I really do hope, and this is my hope, that Rhys Hoskins starts to find it. Because if Rhys Hoskins starts to find it, we saw him hit a grand slam the other day there. I am hoping he starts to find his swing. Because if Rhys finds his swing, if Rhys can find that swing, this lineup becomes dangerous. I don't put dangerous lightly there. You talk about your top of the lineup there. I didn't even mention Bryce Terang in that whole little spiel I just had there. Bryce Terang's still hitting 288. We got to all remember that. This guy is still a great bat. Should be in the conversation. Should easily be in the conversation for second base all-star. Right? Ketel Marte's up there, and Ketel Marte does not have better stats than Bryce Terang. And anybody who wants to argue that with me, you can come on here on the show with me and we can argue it night and day. But Ketel Marte is not a better second baseman / hitter right now than what Bryce Terang is. You have Bryce Terang at the top of that order. You have following that with Contreras and Yelich. And then you have Rhys Hoskins and Adames backing that up, whatever order you want to put them in. And Rhys starts to heat up. That lineup becomes dangerous at the top. And then you even look at the bottom half of that lineup. Sal's hitting and Churro's hitting. Perkins is hit or miss day by day, but Perkins, he finds ways to get on for you. Joey Ortiz is hitting. This lineup for the Brewers is, I like the lineup. I do. Barring injury, I like the lineup. They need to find starters. And this is the first trade deadline in a very long time that I'm going to go into it as a Brewer fan, and I'm going to say the Brewers need starters. They need starters. That's it. That's a big thing I'm looking for. I'm not, if they had a bat, I'm not opposed, right? If you go out and you had a big bat, sure. I'm not going to yell. As long as you don't trade the farm or do something stupid to get the big bat, I'm fine. But, if they make a move for a bat and they don't add a starter, I take issue to that. Because you might be able to survive for now with the rotation you have, but I just really feel once you get closer and closer to that playoff time, you're going to want that ace of your staff. You're going to want that number 2 in your staff. You're going to want a guy that, the bullpen doesn't have to worry that day. They don't have to get taxed. You want a guy that can go deeper into games, that can duel with a guy like Zach Wheeler or, Aaron Nola, Suarez. You look around at some of the better teams in the NL there. You got Tyler Glass now with the Dodgers. And, you got, even look, divisional. The Cardinals are on their way back. They're on their way back in the division right now. I saw they lost yesterday there, their first game of their doubleheader. I was just going to check that out, see if they ended up winning the second game. They must have. they must have won the second game of the doubleheader there. They lost the first one. They won the second game of the doubleheader 4-1. So Cardinals are right on the Brewers' tail right now, 6 games back of the Brewers for first place. I mean, they're coming back and they have some good pitching. The bats are starting to find it. The Brewers need to add to stay afloat. They need to add to stay at the top, right? You have to. And I know a lot of people are like Willy Adames. Logically, yes, but the Josh Hader situation and everything like that, you don't want to tear the clubhouse apart. I don't feel like making a Willy Adames deal is going to be the smartest thing to do. Now, do I see the Brewers signing Willy Adames back? I don't think so. I really don't. I'm going to get into that more tomorrow there. I know a lot of people are talking about contracts that the Brewers could offer Willy Adames. I'm going to get into that and talk a little bit more Willy Adames talk. But, I mean, Brewers sweep the Texas Rangers. It was a phenomenal series for the Brewers, right? They had a lot of comeback wins. They had a couple grand slams mixed in there. It was a great series all the way around. I want to get more into the series that was for the Brewers here tomorrow on the show as we prepare for the weekend series. We got a big weekend series for the Brewers coming up against the Chicago Cubbies. The Cubbies coming up to town here. I mean, we got an off day today. Then the Cubbies coming into town. Going to be a big series with the Cubs there. I was just looking at the starters, the probables. Colin Ray is scheduled for Friday there. We have Myers scheduled for Saturday, and that leads us into Freddie Peralta for the Sunday matchup there. The Cubs have not announced starters for that weekend series, so it's a wait and see there with the Chicago Cubs. But with that, that's about all I got for today. Like I said, NBA draft continues today here. We're going to see what the Bucks do with that second round pick there. Brewers, off day today. Back at it against the Cubs. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the weekend series with the Cubs and talk about our hatred for the Cubs and why we think the Brewers are going to run them out of town there. But with that, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. Like I always say, if you have any comments, anything like that, make sure you comment on the go to the bio. If you're on Apple, Spotify, whatever it is, go into the bio of the show here. You can click send a message. It'll take you directly to a send a message link on your phone or laptop. You can send us a message live or to the show here. We can answer questions, everything like that. You can leave comments, leave reviews out there. I love to see reviews, love to hear what people think and comments, anything that they, constructive criticism, whatever it is, give me something, whatever it is. Let us know how we're doing here on the show. But with that, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday. But until I talk to you guys again tomorrow, deuces.
Yeah, oh my Lord, watch me sway. Darkness falls and we all pray, hoping for the light of day. Down to the river, I have held the devil's hand, felt the weight of my own sin, burdened by the heart of man. Down to the river, down to the river.